Rated T for teen.
What's up, guys? Nevin Dravinsky, producer on UFC Undisputed 2010, coming to you from the famed Black House Gym in Los Angeles, California. I'm joined today by Mark Lehman, one of the premier MMA coaches in the world, as well as your coach in the upcoming UFC 2010 Career Mode. Thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Pleasure. Today we're going to be talking about some of the combat improvements that have gone into the game. We've listened to the community, listened to our fans, and done a lot of things that, we felt were necessary to make the game as real as it gets. So Mark, obviously one of the most noticeable combat improvements that we did this year was the concept of sways, where we're now able to duck and lean. And, maybe for people who aren't as familiar with what that actually means in a fight and how that's important for a fighter, why don't you explain what the sway system is?
Well, swaying allows you to see your opponent's attack and then dip out of the way so you're not getting hit with it. And it also allows you to come back with a counterattack. And there's some great examples of this, like Anderson Silva used this masterfully against Forrest Griffin in UFC 101, where he's able to...
It was a clinic, right?
Yeah, it was pretty insane. And you got to see him dip out of the way of the punches and come back and knock Forrest out.
And you mentioned the fact of countering off of the sways, and that's one of the really important aspects of the system in the Undisputed game. We really felt we needed to have this inside game to it. So this concept of swaying ties into this other concept that we have of risk-reward, where you're able to slip punches and say something that's less risky for you as the player, like a forward sway, which will duck the majority of punches thrown at you. Your corresponding counterattack out of that is going to be less powerful than, say, a left or a right sway, for the simple fact of the matter that you may just get caught.
Yeah, it really brings the octagon closer to the fan. It allows you to emulate what these fighters are doing in the actual octagon and bring it to your controller.
The octagon, I think, is one of the most symbolic things in mixed martial arts, and as a result, we felt we really had to add cage positions this year. That was something that was missing from last year, and cage positions, I think, is a really important aspect of mixed martial arts.
It's huge because basically you have a foreign object that's 90 degrees that's part of what you're fighting on, and you have to learn how to deal with it. It can be used defensively and offensively. You can use it to pin your opponent up against a cage where they can't sprawl and they can get takedowns a lot easier. You can also use it to pin them in clinches where you can do striking, like Anderson Silva stuck Rich Franklin there and teed off him with the knees.
One of the fights actually that I remember the cage being utilized a lot, and it was something that we really tried to capture in the game, was the Tito Ortiz-Chuck fight. It seemed that, even though it wasn't being used in the traditional way that you would imagine pinning somebody up against a cage, it seemed that once Chuck got Tito up in that position and started raining down punches, he really didn't have anywhere to go.
Because you don't allow him to sway back, the cage is a physical barrier in the way, which is going to limit his movement, which is going to make your punching easier to guess of where he's going to be, so you can be more accurate and put a little more power into his punches.
And we really try to capture that in the game as well. Again, it's one of those things that makes the game more realistic. And Mark, one of the things that I'm most pleased with in terms of improvements that went into the 2010 product was the submission system. Last year in 2009, we had this very sort of static state of animations where, there'd be this initiation of a submission.
Enough of your technical bullshit.
Right.
Basically what happened, I got to play the game, and it's awesome. You get to actually see the joint being manipulated, and the camera zooms in to let you know what's getting torqued, and then if the guy's defending, it kind of pulls out, and it just makes it a lot more visceral, and you can feel what's really going on with the submission.
Other submissions that have gone in there, we just saw Paulo Thiago finish off Mike Swick with the Darce. we have the omoplata, the gogoplata.
They're basically making stuff up.
Totally.
One other thing I noticed when I was playing the game is that you can transition from submissions. What did you call that stuff?
So we call that submission switching. So for example, you can be in a submission and, say you're going for a Kimura, for example. Performing a submission switch will allow them to, say, switch from the Kimura to then go for an armbar. And I think that's a very big improvement from the game, and I think that's kind of the cool thing about mixed martial arts is that, you can win an entire fight without throwing a single punch.
For me, like when I play and I'm smashing people online, I usually like to take people down, and what I do there, I like to get the mount, try to get the back. I know you guys added some new back positions, and it looks really good, or I can start to tee off like Matt Hughes did to Hoist Gracie.
Certainly. And Mark, one of the other improvements that went into the 2010 product was this concept of what we call sub-positioning, which is essentially posturing, giving yourself space.
One of the things I tell my fighters is, if you can't get a submission, you want to look to get to a position where you can hit without being interrupted. And you want to be able to end the fight. And if I'm real tight here, none of those little punches are going to get through. But if I can make posture and start shelling someone.
If you have space, you're going to be able to unleash a punch. If some guy's pulling you down, I mean, you're not going to be able to knock him out.
But I'm a little confused. Like, I could do that in the first game, because I know I won many a fight by taking someone down and shelling them.
Well, certainly, yeah. I mean, you had the opportunity to do that in the 2009 product, but we had it from limited positions. In 2010, you can finish the fight from any position. So I could be in half guard, posture up, rain down punches, and rock a guy and actually finish the fight from there.
You know, it was really cool to see it on the TV. You got to see the moves. It just really captures, you know, what you really see happening in the octagon.
So you've just seen an example of a couple of the new combat improvements, including the sways that have gone into UFC 2010 Undisputed.